Welcome to another Dragonlance Saga episode. It is Misham Gildember the 14th. My name is Adam, and today I'm going to give you my spoiler review of Spectre of the Black Rose. Now, I will be spoiling this story, so if you don't want to know this story, please turn this off right now until you've read the book, then come back, and we can talk about it together after the fact. But you get it, right? It's going to be a lot of fun. It is a Thursday. I've had kind of a stressful day, so I'm looking forward to unwinding with you and a little monkey shoulder. So, Solange. Let's get into this. First off, I'd like to thank my collaborator patrons, the Heroes of the Lands, and welcome you to consider becoming a patron or member of the YouTube channel by clicking on the links in the description below this video. You can even pick up Dragonlance gaming materials using my affiliate link. Again, this is my perspective, so if yours differs, I would love to hear it. One thing that I really genuinely appreciate about this YouTube channel, and just the format of speaking with a live audience or checking in with comments after the fact, is that we get to share our love for this wonderful fantasy setting, Dragonlance. And what better way to do it than with other fans of the world who are passionate and excited about the same things. It's great. So let's get into this. I'm going to read my pre-written review of this and then just sort of riff afterward. If you have any questions or comments, throw them up in the live chat and I'll get to them afterward. Otherwise, we'll just sort of have a little bit of fun and, that'll be that. All right, let's dive in. This novel opens with Gesmus Malaturno traveling to Sithicus on behalf of his master, Malachio Adair. He's a spy who gathers information, and Adair wants to know the history of Lord Soth. Now, Gesmus has been traveling in Sithicus, speaking to elves, humans, and even paid off some Vistana in order to gather Soth's background, and then he starts heading back towards the mist, and Azrael, Lord Soth's seneschal, appears before him. Panicked, as Azrael's reputation precedes him, Gesmus tries to escape, but alas, Azrael is far too quick, and Lord Soth's undead knights aid in preventing his escape. Now, he's taken before Lord Soth, who has been in a statuary state on his throne for years. As his memory fades, Sithicus grows more and more dangerous, with sickness and plagues spreading, wars being fought, and scheming by all of its denizens. Soth revives at Gesmus's arrival and asks what he's doing in Sithicus. Gesmus tells the truth that he's actually a spy for Lord Adair, and Soth asks him to tell him the tales that he's gathered in his domain. He tells many of the tales. Most of them have half-truths at best or outright lies, and Lord Soth confirms the truths and, squashes those lies and then retells portions of his own past that he remembers. But again, he has forgotten a lot of it. Lord Soth realizes that he's been derelict in his duty of ruling over Sithicus and demands Gesmus to be sent to the mines to work off his debt with other prisoners that they have, or to have the prisoners ransomed off. On the way to the mines, the wagon's attacked, and a character called the Bloody Cobbler ends up murdering him and taking his, he had a leg brace on, ends up taking him. We cut to a scene in a shop where the Vistani, led by an aging Magda, you'll remember her from the first Lord Soth, Knight of the Black Rose novel, where Magda is trading carpet for salt, and Azrael walks in, preceded by Lord Soth. Lord Soth wants to know who Gesmus got his tale about him from, because Magda's the only one who knows the full extent of it. She denies that it was her, and she says that it was probably the elves and humans across the domain who have been spreading these tales. The truth is that a member of her tribe sold the knowledge, and as soon as Magda found out, she outcasts him and basically curses him. Azrael is assigned to find out who the White Rose is, and again, leading in from Knight of the Black Rose, there's this White Rose wandering the hills around Sithicus, spreading tales about Lord Soth. And I totally lost my spot. I love it when this happens. Jeez. Let's see here. Who is also sharing intimate details of Soth's life and commands Magda to ally with him against Lord Adair. Now, she agrees because she doesn't really have a choice to be his ally, and Azrael returns to what he refers to as the Lake of Sounds, where he can eavesdrop on the citizens of the domain and actually be spoken to by what he believes is the darkness controlling the domains. Magda and Lord Soth arrive at a stone bridge to meet with Malocchio Adair and his ogre guards. One of the half-elf twins, also with Adair, begins reading a statement, and Soth tells him to stop. The half-elf doesn't listen, so Soth outright kills the guy. Adair says that he's going to do the same to Magna, as he wants to destroy her and all of Vistana anyway, but Soth denies him that right, and Malocchio Adair doesn't dare step on Soth's toes. They do eventually battle, however, and Adair sends his ogres across the bridge to attack Soth and Magda, and Soth calls his banshees, and so we have this outright skirmish between banshees being pulled on chariots by wyverns, and ogres like smashing into Lord Soth and him just tearing everyone apart. It's pretty cool. It's a great way of stretching Lord Soth's toes, because, again, he's been sitting as a statue on his throne for, I think, a couple decades at this point, like 30 years. Excuse me, I just had some, like, spicy noodles, and so now I'm sort of suffering the effects of that. Let's see. Lord Soth defeats everyone. Magda gets wounded, and they part ways after Adair leaves. Magda returns to her camp, and they're attacked by shadows from the salt chest that Azrael left in her Ambrose's shop when she was trying to sell carpets. Magda actually dies in the battle before Lord Soth appears too late to save her, and she forces him in her last dying breaths to follow up on his promise to protect her and extend that to her kin, the Vistana. And ultimately, if he does that, she will lift the curse that her grandmother put on him to never find his home again. So this is great, because if he protects her kin, the Vistana, then he's going to ultimately be able to find his way out of Sithicus, or at least not be barred from finding his way out. He agrees, and knows Azrael set up this entire salt shadow attack. And so he travels to the Lake of Sound, confronts Azrael, who is shitting his pants ostensibly, and tries to twist it around, saying, no, it was Magda who was working with the White Rose, not me. She was the one telling the tales. Clearly, I would never do that to you. Only she would do that. And Lord Soth doesn't quite believe it, but he doesn't want to execute him if, in fact, he's telling the truth. And so he stays the execution of Azrael, fires him as a seneschal, but then orders him to find the White Rose and execute her. Stop this nonsense right now. And what could Azrael do but accept, right? So Azrael's going to the Mist, telling him about his domain once... Azrael's enjoying the mist, the darkness within the mist that is speaking to him, telling him about how his domain is going to be so wonderful once Lord Soth has been executed or dethroned, which is ultimately his plan. Until Lord Soth appears and then, has this confrontation I just spoke about. Azrael ends up sending his henchmen all around the land seeking White Rose conspirators or spies. He ends up going to that shop that we found at the opening scene, and they end up roughing up the shop owner a little bit, but ultimately there's someone in there that ends up being an elf spy, like, coincidentally enough. One of the ladies that's in there who's sick, who is a sort of side character named Helene. She's sick with this madness that's been plaguing Sithicus. She ends up just freaking out, jumps through a window and runs away. Her would-be fiance, Ganelin, who's also in the shop, chases after her into a tunnel and is chased out of it by insect creatures who then all run away from the Bloody Cobbler. So standing right behind Ganelin is the Bloody Cobbler. He tells Ganelin that Helene is in fact safe, not to worry about it, or she will be, and that he can actually find her on a hill after Lord Soth arrives. Now, Lord Soth does in fact arrive and tries to kill the Bloody Cobbler, but actually can't touch him at all. Everything he does just passes right through him. The Bloody Cobbler knows an awful lot about Lord Soth's past too, a little too much. He taunts Soth and then disappears. Ganelin, still hunting for Helene, now runs into the outcast Vistana, who ignore him and continues driven by the call of the Whispering Beast. So the Bloody Cobbler and the Whispering Beast are these two sort of creatures that have sprung up in Lord Soth's statuary absence of this domain, right? They've been, the Whispering Beast has been terrorizing, driving people mad like Helene, and the Bloody Cobbler's just been assassinating people like a serial killer, ostensibly. He takes shelter in a cave, and the Vistana come up on him because they are searching for the mad member of their tribe. They end up trapping him and questioning him about how to find the beast. They torture Ganlon until he's rescued through the shadows by the Whispering Beast himself. We switch to Azrael, who's forming an army of the remaining citizens and collecting large sums of money from the mine, which is guarded by the protectors. It is clear that Azrael is plotting something that is not in line with Lord Soth's demands. Now, with the Whispering Beast, Helene is trapped by his power. The former beautiful elf, now a disgusting creature, which is the Whispering Beast, is in absolute control of every one of these mad people who are in this veil, and just torturing every single one of them by whispering into his necklace made of like human and elven ears. And that's the only way they can like hear anything because they're just going insane. Pretty messed up imagery there. Dogard Keep the following day. Ganlon ends up traveling into Malacho Adair's domain and enters the garden only to discover the roses are corpse roses, and after instructing the mad servants through the Whispering Beast's ear he was given, they begin pulling roses off without touching the thorns. One of the mad react over a rat, and it awoke the corpse roses, who began assaulting all of the mad people. The survivors flee over the garden wall, only to run into Malacho Adair himself. Now, Malacho demands to know what's going on, and Ganlon, again, as honest as ever, admits everything. Adair ends up trusting him because of this sign of respect, and the leg brace that the Bloody Cobbler actually gave him, who was Adair's spy's leg brace. He tells him about all of the rumors about those ogres attacking Lord Soth's keep, and they're not supposed to. They're supposed to be a show of force, not an attacking force on behalf of Malacho Adair. So someone else paid off his ogres. So he's pretty pissed off. So he is going to allow those people to return with the roses to the White Rose if Ganlon now works for him and goes and kills Azrael, who he assumes is the one who paid off his ogres to betray him. So you can see there's a lot of infighting amongst everyone at this point. Ganlon has no choice but to agree. Of course, if he does agree, he not only saves his life, but he also ultimately saves Helene, because the roses will go back, and if the White Rose and the Whispering Beast, meet their promises, then her madness will be lifted. So he goes along and he travels to try to find some way of killing Azrael, which is not going to be easy because, of course, Azrael's super awesome. He's a tough guy. Let's see. Azrael captures the Bloody Cobbler and ends up torturing him, which is strange because Lord Soth couldn't even harm him with his magic, but somehow Azrael can harm him physically. So the mechanics of the Bloody Cobbler are a little wonky at best. Lord Soth witnesses 3 armies the next day coming to meet on the battlefield. Now, he understands it as the Elven army and the local farmer and miner army of humans are under the control of Azrael on his behalf to destroy the ogre army. But the truth is he sees the 3 armies joined together under the treachery of Azrael. This infuriates Lord Soth, and then we have Isla coming in confirming that yes, Azrael had in fact betrayed him and stolen all the treasure and everything. And right now he's conducting a ritual in order to draw all of the shadows out of the realm of Sithicus, empowering him to then overthrow Lord Soth, and the armies will then overthrow the keep. Lord Soth, not to be one to be trifled with, and acts on vengeance as historically he always would and should, immediately goes to attack Azrael. He gets to the cave where the Lake of Shadows is, where he's going to be doing this this ritual, and there's a ward around it. So he starts battering the ward, breaking it down slowly. His banshees show up, and they're like, hey, as soon as you left, that Vistani bitch Isla threw up wards forcing all of the undead out of Nadragard Keep, and she then allowed all of the 3 armies inside. So now they hold your keep. So Lord Soth will have none of this. He's been betrayed by Azrael, but he can stay that execution another day. Isla is going to pay. Totally pissed. So he then leaves to go back. He can't travel inside the wards, but he travels outside and he starts battering the wards. And his banshees are all there next to him with their wyvern-driven chariots, like, waiting for him to break through the wards around his keep. Let's see, where was I? Sorry, I do this all freeform and then I lose my place when I read this. I should just read it straight up, and I never end up doing that. Oh yeah, so when the Banshees came over and told him about the ward, immediately they said, clearly Isla is trying to take control of Sithicus, and somehow there's a connection between her and Azrael that she had kept secret up until now. So he ends up breaking through the ward, blowing everyone's mind, like he should not have been able to do that. But again, it's Lord Soth. What are you going to do? He moves in to confront Isla, ready to murder her with her death magic, and the Banshees are sweeping through the hole that he broke through the ward, destroying the entire armies all at once, just sort of, moving around insanely. I would love to see this in a film or a TV series a la Game of Thrones, because it would be amazing looking. But it's this massacre. And just with the 13 Banshees and his 13 skeletal warriors and himself. He's just a monster of a monster. Ultimately, when he casts his death magic on Isla, the Whispering Beast, the Bloody Cobbler, and the White Rose appear and actually stop the magic. Sort of wither it away or something. They reveal themselves as his ex-wife Isolde and Lord Soth's 2 dead sons. And what they did here was merge the Lord Soth novel history with the Knight of the Black Rose novel history, because they were separate and different. But the fact that the one son, who is the twisted version of himself, the Whispering Beast, that could be seen as his first wife's twisted son, who was twisted because Lord Soth's honor was twisted. And the second son, the Bloody Cobbler, was the one that was burned with his mother when the chandelier fell on during the Cataclysm. So they actually merged those 2 stories, which I never picked up on before until this second reading here, which I absolutely love. And they touched on merging it a little bit earlier as well. But as soon as you got away from his old seneschal Canelin and you stopped worrying about who killed the first wife and whether the first wife was pregnant, it makes it easier to merge the 2. Okay, so Soth refuses to believe that that is in fact them, and Isla is forced out to face her own destiny at the hands of a giant that she had mutilated earlier in the novel. That and her other tribesmen who now know that she has betrayed them. The Bloody Cobbler actually used those undead risen Vistana in order to flay them and make leather boots out of the undead skin for the giant in order to repair his feet and allow him to travel here to enact his revenge on Isla. Pretty twisted stuff. Again, love to see a film of this. Isla, rather than meeting, those who want to destroy her, leaps to her apparent death into the great chasm that surrounds Nadragard Keep before they can, in fact, exact their revenge. The White Rose acknowledges that Lord Soth had forgotten so much of his past. As his memory returns, elements of his own life start returning as well. The 3 Moon of Krynns have been appearing, progressively throughout the novel as his memory is returning about his life. Nadragard Keep starts becoming more faithful to Dargard Keeps in its appearance and its, halls and stuff like that. It just starts to match up rather than being a twisted version of it. And this massive shadow starts falling down on all of Sithicus. Now, we realize later that as soon as Soth left Azrael and the ritual tomb, Ganlon comes in under the orders of Malacho Adair in order to kill Azrael. He sneaks into where the ritual is going to be performed, and he throws poison in a bunch of the artifacts that are going to be used for the ritual. And then the twisted versions of his shopkeep friends from earlier in the novel capture him, and Azrael comes in really not concerned about him at all, not knowing about the poisoning of anything, ends up performing the ritual, and all the shadows from everyone, even Lord Soth, strip away from them and start empowering Azrael until he realizes that the poison starts coursing through his body and he can't control all of this. The shadows just erupt out of him and form this giant rock, which of course is paralleling the mountain falling on Krynn, which then crashes, and all of the spirits, all the shadows return to all the people that owned them. And this moment of clarity for Azrael, when he realizes that that sound he heard, that voice he heard telling him to turn on Lord Soth, that he could actually be the powerful domain leader, was all Isla's voice, that she was the person managing the whole thing from the very beginning, the whole plan. She convinced Azrael to defect and turn against his master. She convinced him to then use Malachio Adair's ogres to attack her own people in order to kill them, so that she could call on Lord Soth to get Lord Soth away from the keep so that they could then take the keep over. As soon as that sort of didn't fall quite in place, she demanded that Lord Soth take her into the keep, which he did because he swore the oath to Magda, and then she bans all the undead from within the keep. So this was all her machinations from beginning to end, and now, of course, it doesn't happen because Lord Soth's a badass, and who's going to stop him? But also, ultimately, the White Rose, knowing that this woman is going to destroy herself based on the actions of herself, It's that whole Krynn trope, the whole Dragonlance trope of evil feeding on itself. In this particular case, it's evil is, karma's a bitch. It's going to come around and bite you in the butt. Ultimately, Sithicus... Oh, I'm sorry. So the White Rose acknowledges that Lord Soth forgot so much of his past. And ultimately, as soon as Soth's memory returns, he is then returned to Krynn. It was a bit of a deflation of the story when this happened, because it didn't really seem to make sense. As soon as he acknowledged the Bloody Cobbler and the Whispering Beast as his children, as soon as he acknowledged the White Rose as Isolde, his ex-wife, and he relived their deaths as soon as that shadow came down and the cataclysm happened again in Sithicus, he realized the truth of all of his history, and that was all he needed to do in order to be transported through the mists back to his keep. And it said that everyone in Krynn had a nightmare of evil returning, which I kind of really loved that. And all of the undead were swarming to Dargard Keep to pay respects to Lord Soth, who hath returned, which is just awesome. This is a great story. The conflict between the domains and its residents, all of the different lords and their powers, it ended up all being the result of multiple forces pushing and pulling against each other with evil or vengeful intents, and it proved that Lord Soth is just simply too powerful to remain in Ravenloft. His return heralded a return of complete evil to Krynn, and it brought a smile to my black little heart. I loved it. I thought it was great. Now, I enjoyed this novel a lot. Again, it merged two conflicting tales of Lord Soth's backstory, a little bit of stitching, not completely, but ultimately it brought my favorite villain back to Dragonlance, which is what I wanted in the first place. It didn't, however, resolve the whole Kitiara soul issue, which was what brought him to Ravenloft in the first place. Why would that not be a part of the correction? Like, throughout the entire end, like the last act of Night of the Black Rose, it suggested that this White Rose is Kitiara. And at the very beginning of this novel, it throws out little hints about that as well. And yet it's not, and there's no resolution at all. And of course, at the very beginning of Night of the Black Rose, Caradon left the soul in his chambers, and ultimately, right before he was killed, told Lord Soth that. And so Lord Soth knows where the soul is, so he could just claim it and do whatever he wants with it, puts it back in her body or something if he wants, because he has her corpse. But it didn't even mention any of that. And I felt like if that's what you started on, why would you not finish with that as well? It just makes sense to me to have those cap ends, especially because that's such a driving force for Lord Soth as a character. That's his whole arc. Left it unresolved, kind of bugged me. Dangling thread, but whatever. Everything Ravenloft for Lord Soth has officially been reneged at this point. If you're a fan of Ravenloft, if you're a fan of Lord Soth or Dragonlance, I highly recommend this novel to you, only after you've read the first Knight of the Black Rose novel from Ravenloft as well. And there's a review for that if you want to check that out. You're welcome to. But that's it. That's my review of Spectre the Black Rose by James Lowder and Voronica Whitney-Robinson. Have you read the novel? What did you think about it? Is Lord Soth simply too powerful for Ravenloft in your opinion? Is he just better suited to Krynn? Was this all just an attempt of Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman to regain control of their storytelling and ultimately finish his tale out with the War of Souls trilogy? Let me know in the comments below. You can always email me at info@dragonlance-saga.com. And I'd like to once again remind you to consider becoming a patron or member of this channel, and you can pick up Dragonlance gaming materials using my affiliate link in the description below. This channel is all about celebrating the wonderful world of the Dragonlance Saga, and I hope you join me in the celebration. My name is Adam from Dragonlance Saga, and until next time, Slán Javar.